The mining station, Erebus 9, orbited silently above a dead planet in the far reaches of the Linsis Quadrant. It was a cold, forgotten place where communication with Earth took over a week. The crew of 16, engineers, technicians, biologists, and 2 security officers, maintained the desolate installation that extracted volatile minerals from the crust below. They were efficient, solitary people, and over time had become as mechanical as the machines they operated. On the 198th day of isolation, a distress signal was received. It was faint, fractured by interference, but clearly from a human source. The message looped: "We've crashed, hostile life form, survivor, request immediate evac." The transmission had no location data, only a series of corrupted coordinates. Captain Mallory Wren, the commanding officer, was reluctant. It could be a century-old signal bouncing through nebula gas. Or worse, a trap. But protocol required a response. They dispatched the dropship Osprey with a 4-person team: Wren herself, engineer Paolo Saito, biologist Alana Thorne, and security officer Garrett Brandt. They followed the coordinates through a jagged asteroid belt and located a derelict research ship crashed into the side of a jagged canyon. The hull was shredded like tissue paper. Something had torn its way out. Inside, the corridors were dark and slick with some unknown mucus-like residue. Corpses lay slumped in lab coats, their torsos split open from the inside. On the bridge, they found a lone survivor, Dr. Elias Corrin, barely alive, muttering incoherently. "Had to burn it. It was inside. One of us couldn't tell anymore." They evacuated him. The Osprey returned to Erebus 9, and the moment they arrived, quarantine procedures were activated. But Corrin never made it through the 72-hour observation. On the second night, he vomited blood and convulsed until his chest split open, and something wet and black skittered away into the ventilation ducts before security could react. The station descended into chaos. Every possible exit was sealed. The mainframe, controlled by the onboard AI, KOS, was instructed to lock down all blast doors. Wren initiated a search protocol. The thing that killed Corrin was aboard, but the vents were a labyrinth. Thermal scanners picked up nothing. At first, they thought it might be a Xenomorph drone, a killing machine from the dark corners of the galaxy, capable of wiping out entire stations. But no sightings were confirmed, only signs: a shredded jumpsuit here, a trail of slime there, and eventually a body. Briggs, the head mechanic, was found stuffed behind the fuel pumps with a punctured skull. Saito theorized it was fast and efficient. It didn't just kill, it infiltrated, learned, waited. "I think it's intelligent," Alana whispered one evening in the mess hall, her voice trembling. Corrin said it was already one of them. What if it can mimic? Hide in plain sight? The idea spread like wildfire. Each crew member was now a suspect. Suspicion grew. People traveled in pairs, then alone. No one trusted anyone. Security footage began to vanish. Logs were corrupted. KOS's voice developed glitches, like it was under strain. Then 3 more died over the next week, always when they were alone, always unseen. The pattern became clear. It hunted in silence, picking them off one by one. Then came the turning point. Wren called a meeting in the main control room. 14 remained. She stood at the center, gaunt and exhausted, her voice hoarse. "One of us isn't who they say they are. We will run DNA scans, blood tests, anything to identify the impostor." Brandt objected. "What if it's smart enough to hide even from that? What if it mimics us at the molecular level?" But they ran the tests anyway. Nothing unusual surfaced. Then during the next shift, Technician Morrow entered the engine bay and never returned. His remains were discovered hours later, skin peeled, bones rearranged like ritual art. The crew fractured. 2 formed a splinter group and sealed themselves inside the hydroponics lab. Another 3 took over the med bay and rewired the AI to obey only their voice prints. Alana, haunted by the implication of an evolving life form, scoured Corrin's recovered logs. She played his final entry in secret. It mimics by consumption, learns not just shape but memory, emotion, behavior. It becomes them. You'd never know. You'd never see it coming until it's too late. She looked up at the camera feed, realized someone had been watching her. She spun around. The lab door was open, but she'd sealed it minutes earlier. A figure stood there. Saito. Paolo, she asked, unease crawling up her spine. He didn't answer at first. Then, with the same smile he always wore, he stepped forward and said, "We need to talk." She grabbed the nearest scalpel. Later, when they found her body curled beneath her desk, all that was missing was her tongue. Terror took over. Ren dissolved the chain of command and demanded a full lockdown. But KOS, now heavily malfunctioning, refused several commands. When Brandt tried to reset the AI core, it exploded, vaporizing half his torso. Down to 10. Ren, shaking with fear, held a private meeting with 3 remaining loyalists. "We can't test for it. We can't track it. But maybe we can force it to reveal itself. Create a scenario where it's cornered. It doesn't want to die." They decided to simulate a reactor overload, a fake one. Trigger evacuation protocols. Force it to act to survive. The theory was sound. But someone leaked the plan. When they reached the control panel, they found Reyes, the system operator, with his jaw unhinged, mouth stretching beyond normal limits, black saliva oozing as he shrieked and lunged. They shot him, 10 rounds to the chest, 1 to the head. He crumpled. But what emerged was worse. A black mass, slick and glistening, unfolded from inside his skin like a shell. A xenomorph, but different. Taller. Its carapace gleamed with traces of human tissue. It stared with what seemed like recognition. Not rage, not hunger. Calculation. Then it fled into the dark. Now the truth was undeniable. It was Reyes. Not just mimicking appearance. It became him. It lived among them, wore their skins, listened to their fears, watched their plans. For weeks, it had moved unnoticed, possibly as more than one person. There might be others. They couldn't trust anything anymore. Not a face, not a voice, not even memories. That night, Ren isolated herself in the captain's quarters, double-bolted every entrance. She replayed crew logs, searched for inconsistencies in speech, in timing, in behavior. She watched herself in them too, wondering if she'd missed something, if she, at some point, had spoken with one of them and not known. Then a knock at the door. She grabbed her pulse rifle. "Captain?" It was Alana's voice. "Please. I don't know who to trust anymore." She checked the feed. Alana stood outside, clutching her side, blood on her hands. But Ren hesitated. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Alana looked up at the camera. "I don't know," she said, and began sobbing. Something about the way she cried felt off. Too rhythmic. Like a playback loop. Ren didn't open the door. The next morning, she awoke to find the door controls melted. Someone had tried to force entry. But there was no sign of Alana anywhere in the station. Only her voice remained, echoing in the vents, calling out intermittently, fragments repeating. "Help me. Ren, please." She wasn't Alana. Not anymore. The station's systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Oxygen levels dipped in some wings. The reactor gave false overload warnings. The AI was dead. Communications to Earth gone. The creature, or creatures, had fully infiltrated Erebus 9. Ren gathered the last 3 survivors, Security Cadet Lin, Engineer Nash, and Medic Imani. They made a final plan, blow the entire station. Cut the power core and initiate self-destruct. As they moved through the main shaft, Ren kept checking behind them. No one spoke. Every breath sounded like betrayal. They reached the core, started the process. 10 minutes countdown. That's when Lin turned. 1 second she was quiet, focused. The next, her skin began to stretch, eyes melting, voice glitching. Her scream split into 2 tones, one human, one alien. Nash fired, but she kept coming until a plasma blast reduced her to charred bone. The timer kept ticking. 7 minutes. The floor rumbled. Multiple motion readings came from the ducts. They were no longer dealing with a xenomorph. The infection had spread. Imani screamed as black talons snatched her into the ceiling. Nash backed away, whispering "no, no," until something pierced through his abdomen from behind. Ren ran. She had one destination left, the Osprey. The dropship was still intact, locked in the hangar. She dodged collapsed beams, ran across blood-slicked corridors, dodging shapes in the shadows. She no longer knew if she was being followed or if it was all in her mind. The hangar loomed ahead. She made it, sealed the airlock, set the engine to launch. As the dropship powered up, she looked back through the viewport. The station's lights flickered, smoke poured through cracks. Shapes moved in the distance. Some still walked like humans. Others crawled. One even waved, like Reyes had once waved when he first welcomed her aboard. The countdown hit 0. Erebus 9 lit up behind her, the explosion consuming everything. Ren sat motionless in the pilot's chair, breathing hard, staring at the void. She had escaped, or so she thought. An hour later, while reviewing the dropship's pre-flight checks, she noticed something odd. A biosignature, faint but present. She was supposed to be alone. The door behind her creaked. She turned slowly. There stood Saito. But she had seen Saito die. Had watched his eyes go glassy, his body split in half. And yet he stood there, smiling gently. "Captain," he said, "we need to talk."